Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with life balance coach, podcaster, and speaker, Charis Santillie. She is a certified fearless living coach, fearless trainer, and positive intelligence trainer that has been an entrepreneur for over 20 years. A hot air balloon accident when she was 19 left her dad paralyzed with a broken neck and led her mom to becoming an alcoholic. She managed that internal crisis by staying ridiculously busy. She now helps high achievers go from busy to balanced and finding lasting inner satisfaction and peace of mind with their external accomplishments that leave them unfulfilled. We get into all of this and so much more. Enjoy this interview.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Yeah, I'm really happy you reached out. Thank you so much.
Before we get into your life as a life balance coach and everything that led up to this, you know, the last 3 years, especially now that we're looking on a calendar and it says March, you know, we all probably have some level of PTSD. So I'm curious how you survived that COVID time and how it's changed the way that you live your life and approach business now.
It really was a time that I think, like a lot of people, got me into a lot of self-reflection and really forced a new level of slowdown, which was I really enjoyed to some degree and kind of savored. And for me, it also became a time to continue to transition and restructure my life and priorities. And that, you know, I think it turned out to be, I embraced the opportunity, I guess, is a way to put it. I embraced the opportunity and found the gifts therein and really went for it. It wasn't always easy. There were some challenging moments for sure, very, very challenging. But overall, I would say I took the opportunity to go with the flow and continue to shift my life.
Have you seen an uptick in your business? I mean, I'd imagine with everybody going through levels of self-reflection that things have drastically changed in the human psyche. Did you get an uptick?
I would say that it's definitely, yes, because like you said, people are really reconsidering things about their lives. And this change, you know, all the things we went through this last few years really did force a moment, at least, if not weeks and months and years worth, depending on where you were and how you had it affect your life, of time to reconsider what's going on in your world and how do you really feel. Because I think that forcing us to slow down like that made it really apparent and just change so many things of our lives for so long and so many things that are continuing to evolve out of it, that it really brought things up to the surface of things that we were uncomfortable with, things that we are wondering why we were doing them, why are we still doing them, why do we want to go back to them or not go back to them, and what do we really want our lives to look like now. I think there's a lot of people that, you know, just have gone back to as much as they can, the same old, and yet I think that there's a larger amount of people that I'm seeing that are really have been shaking things up and looking for something to help them feel better in their lives, enjoy their life more, and not miss out on what's possible.
So you're obviously in the business of giving a lot of yourself. So to get to that point of understanding how this happened, tell me where you were born and raised and how some of these seeds in your childhood were planted in you to grow up into who you are.
So I was born and raised in southeastern Washington State, and it's that part of Washington is real desert, very dry, very different than people typically think of Washington. It's not all like Seattle, not all rain and hills and things. And I grew up in a very entrepreneurial household. My parents had started their own business, multiple businesses over the years when I was really young, that my dad was up to. And then the one that really stuck and took off was around, I think I was around 11 or so years old, 10 or 11, somewhere around there. And it was a gourmet pasta business. And so it started out of our home kitchen and grew to a very big company, and they got all sorts of awards and accolades, and that's the environment I really grew up in those core, teen years. And I followed what I saw modeled for me by them of being a real go-getter, really going for achievements, really putting all my energy into things I did, whether it was my grades and schoolwork or, extracurricular activities. I was, a dancer, whatever it was, to just really go all in, because I saw them do that. And they were very hard workers, and, I watched them put a lot of effort into their dreams. And then I really did have quite an idyllic childhood, and I got to watch my parents actually pursue and achieve the quote unquote American dream, which was really quite a special thing to have happen for me as a kid. Now, I went off to college and then came home just 1 year after my freshman year of college, and we were celebrating my dad's 50th birthday with a hot air balloon ride. And it was a really hot day, and like I mentioned, we were in the desert part of Washington State. It was like 107 that day, and this was in 1994. And we almost didn't go up, but we did, and it was a beautiful ride. It was hot for sure, but it was beautiful. But when we were coming down to land, the pilot knew we were coming in too fast and that something was going terribly wrong. So when we came in for the landing, the balloon basket hit the ground and violently bounced, and my dad was thrown out of the basket. And I remember seeing that moment, in fact. His foot got caught with a cord, one of the cords for the balloon, and it wrapped around his ankle. And he was hanging upside down below us and drug through farm fields, corn and alfalfa fields, about the length of a football field. And I remember crouching down and just screaming hysterically. And I don't remember the details of how the heck we were finally able to land, but somehow we got down and were racing over to him, and he was not breathing, he was not moving. He was breathing. He was conscious, thankfully, but he wasn't moving. And they carefully turned him over, and our eyes made contact, and he looked very beat up, as you can imagine. And it was a terrifying experience for all of us. And to see him there not being able to move, just, I don't even know that I can put words to it. But when he looked at me and he saw how upset I was, his first words to me were, "You should see the other guy." So he was able to, crack a joke in such a moment. And then this crash landing, the result of this was he was paralyzed with a broken neck. And then this led my mom to become an alcoholic, and eventually that did end up killing her a few decades later. And then for me, my coping mechanism was working and being busy, like to an insane amount. And because it was just simpler. I mean, it really kicked in that night at the hospital of me just like suddenly kind of the hysterical upset subsided, and then it shifted to, I've got to just like take care of business. That'll make this easier if I just kind of like can get into a zone and help make calls and figure out what needs to be done at this point. I was just about to turn 19, so it was, real pivotal age and kind of coming of an adult, but not quite there yet. But I really dove into just keeping myself busy and kind of avoiding the feelings. And that lasted a really long time, many, many, many years. And I eventually had someone ask me a question at a business conference. I became an entrepreneur myself, and I was at a business conference years later, nearly 20 years later, and for some reason, we were chatting. Somebody I'd barely just met, and his name serendipitously happened to be the same name as my father. And he asked me, after I shared my story with him, he said, I get your dad being paralyzed, but Charis, why are you paralyzed? And that really got me and made me realize that I'd been just stuffing my feelings, and it was no wonder I wasn't really feeling fulfilled in spite of my accomplishments, all the external stuff. So I really began a journey to figure out how to feel better and take care of what totally was cracked open of something that needed to heal. And that led me to, ironically, the next day happened to meet a life coach, started working with her, and then all sorts of things I did over the next 10 years. And eventually that led me to become a life coach myself. And really my focus is to help people find whatever it means to them, their version of life balance, when they've done something similar to what I did for different reasons, all sorts of different reasons that people do it, but when they've let busy become the way to get through life, and they realize it's just not serving them anymore. They're tired of that, and they want to live more freely, feel better more often. So that is how I ended up here.
That's a wonderful timeline. When you were, before this accident happened, when you were young, say, in grade school, what was your dream when you grew up? What did you want to become?
This is actually funny. All right. It makes me smile to think of it. I have a timeline that I did I don't know if it was maybe 6th grade or 5th grade or somewhere in elementary school, where it shows, when I would go to college, what I would be doing. And, my plan, at least when I was 16 at that time, looking ahead at the older age of 16, was that I was going to work at this rock and hobby shop that was local because I was really into rocks and was collecting rocks, and I had a rock polisher, and I was really into rocks and I would literally pick up rocks on my way home from school and have a pocket full of rocks that I'd be staring down and picking up off the ground and finding on my way home. I don't know what I was going to do beyond that, but that was the short-term, big girl teenager job I was going to get. So there you go.
Right on. So in your life, who has consistently been a role model or a hero for you?
From the aspect of going for things and not being afraid to pursue dreams and ambitions, my dad, and also for his unwavering ability to not let life completely knock him down, even though it physically paralyzed him, the fact that he just was able to mentally get back up again. He was able to mentally stay moving. And so he's absolutely been someone that I have and continue to admire. He also, when I was a child, had all these positive books and a whole library of it was before CDs, so they were cassette tapes and audios of all the positive, the initial personal development kind of in the 80s. And he would even lend out those things to friends and employees and people. It was literally like a little checkout library that he had going on in the den of our house. On the inside of a cabinet door, I remember it was just handwritten who took what date and keeping track. So, and he had sticky notes places and would, the type of person to write on the mirror, that kind of thing. So that really was an amazing thing to have as a kid. As I've gotten older, and gone through this decade of intense personal development, working on myself and working with clients, I've learned that it's also even more important to look at yourself and your future self. Matthew McConaughey had a famous awards acceptance speech years ago. I think it was for an Oscar. And it was basically somebody had asked him years ago when he was a kid, who's your hero? And he thought about it for a while, and he basically said, he came back and told the person after he'd given it some thought that his hero is himself in 10 years. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And a lot of different people that I follow and mentors now that are in different types of personal development arenas, a lot of people talk about the future self or, doing a guided meditation and thinking about your wiser, older self. And I think that is a really powerful thing to do, because that is what can help pull us forward into our ideal life. Because as much as the other mentors, and whether it be family members or people out in the world that we admire and look up to for various reasons and model after for various reasons, at the end of the day, we need to have our own future self and what we want in our life, because we're unique in our desires and our dreams and our needs and our wants, have that pull us forward. So that is now a key person that I let guide me.
So let's say you have a dream tonight, and this kind of piggybacks off this, and you can run into your younger version, say in your early 20s, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've led, the wisdom you've gained. What would you tell that young version?
The first thought that comes to mind is slow down and take a deep breath. But, what's challenging here is that looking back, it's like, would I want to have her change her course because it got me to my life now? And, the whole, I don't know. I don't know. But I think slow down, take a deep breath, and try to practice trusting yourself more. I think that would be the best thing I could tell her.
If you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now and spend a few minutes with them, who would it be?
I've been following Mel Robbins very much since she launched her podcast, and I've really enjoyed her a lot. I think it would be a fun and deep conversation and very real. So she's popping to mind.
Of all of the things that you've done and accomplished in your life, what are you the proudest of?
I think it comes to learning how to trust myself. And it's an ongoing practice for sure. But tapping into what I like to think of as kind of my inner compass or my gut, and really being able to discern what's the next best thing for me to do. That has created more peace and more happiness in my life than anything else I can think of right now.
So what's been one of the best client success stories, fan letters you've ever gotten?
I have a client, Talisa, who just within 2 weeks of joining my Busy to Balanced program had already started getting great feedback from people around her, like noticing a change in her. And she was feeling better too. So that was really remarkable. I mean, for her to literally tell me that it was life-changing already within 2 weeks, I mean, that's the point. That's the point. That's the reason I'm doing this work.
For sure. Yeah. Everyone in your life you're in a different light for everyone in your life, family, friends, colleagues, clients, but ultimately you are in control of your life and what you do. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I am an ambitious woman, who is doing her best to continue to find her way and see if she can help others along the journey. That she can still have moments of overwhelm and, old patterns pop up, just like everyone does. And yet someone who's committed to continuing to recognize those moments, being aware as much as possible and recalibrating and realigning and finding that breath and finding that peace and going after whatever she wants to next.
So if anyone out there wants to learn more about you, your services, anything pertaining to your world, where's the best place for them to go?
They can check out my podcast called Charis Your Life, a little play on words with my name, Charis, Charis Your Life. And they can also, I have a free video training that is just newly released in the last few weeks, and they can get that at charisyourlife.com/video.
Wonderful. Charis, this has been great. Thank you for opening up, being so willing to dispense your story. I really appreciate it. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.